The evening sun cast long shadows over the endless dunes surrounding the grand palace, its golden spires piercing the twilight sky like daggers of ancient power. Inside the marble walls, where silk curtains whispered and crystal chandeliers trembled with quiet menace, the billionaire sheikh stood rigid, his dark eyes stormy pools beneath furrowed brows. The air was thick with tension, every breath a silent scream as he faced a crisis that no wealth or influence could immediately dismantle. His personal lawyers, men renowned across continents for their ruthless efficiency, had hit an unprecedented dead end. Vital papers sprawled on the ornate desk beside him, each failed strategy another blade twisting in an invisible wound, threatening to unravel the empire he had meticulously forged. Years of dominance teetered on the brink, and frustration clawed at his calm like a merciless desert wind. The perfumed scent of oud drifted faintly, mingling with the distant call of the desert night. Yet the silence in the grand hall was unbroken, except for the measured footsteps of the maid. She moved with an unassuming grace, eyes sharp and calm. The same hands that polished the gleaming gold of the throne room now carried the weight of possibilities unseen by the kingdom's most brilliant minds. He had never imagined salvation would arrive dressed in such simplicity. The billionaire sheikh turned sharply at the subtle click of heels, eyes narrowing. She stood tall, unwavering, despite the gulf that divided their worlds. Him, a titan of wealth and power. She, the quiet force often overlooked. The moment stretched, electric and fragile, charged with unspoken challenges. "What do you think?" he demanded, voice low but trembling with barely suppressed anger. "My lawyers failed to defend what is rightfully mine. How could you, a mere maid, claim to fix what they could not?" Her lips pressed into a line, then parted with quiet assurance. "Because sometimes the biggest threats hide in the smallest details, Your Highness." They were looking too far ahead when the answer was beneath their noses all along. The room seemed to pulse, revealing a flicker of disbelief and reluctant respect. For the first time, he saw not just the servant before him, but a mind that outmaneuvered his elite council with effortless brilliance. The walls of the palace, heavy with gold and history, seemed suddenly fragile. The crisis that terrorized his empire melted away in that crushing moment of truth. His faith in power alone had blinded him, and now, as dusk deepened into night, the roles of master and maid danced on uncertain ground. What had begun as a threat was becoming an awakening, a chance to rethink loyalties, trust, and the very nature of strength. Before the sands of this endless desert reveal the next secret, make sure you're riding with our caravan of stories. Many destinies await their fate, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if this billionaire sheikh's mystery has caught your heart. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga, and what twist do you think awaits us? Your passion for these tales is what inspires us to keep spinning them. Thank you for staying with us. The maid's eyes held a glint of quiet defiance as she unfolded the weathered parchment. "Your Highness," she said softly, voice steady but brimming with conviction. "This clause wasn't just missed. It's a loophole disguised by arrogance. Your lawyers were blinded by prestige, but the law hides in the overlooked corners." The billionaire Sheikh's gaze locked onto the ancient ink, tracing the swirls of script that shifted the tides of his fate. The palace's grandeur seemed to fade, replaced by a suffocating pressure that tightened his chest. He swallowed hard, the weight of power momentarily slipping through his grasp. The subtle scent of oud no longer comforted, but sharpened his senses. Every detail mattered now. "I never imagined." His voice faltered, rough with disbelief. "How did you?" She raised her chin defiantly, yet a shadow of vulnerability softened her posture. "I have watched, listened. Secrets are often whispered where others pay no attention. I learned more than dusting the gilded halls." His usually stormy eyes flickered with something new, respect mingled with a wary curiosity. She was no ordinary servant. Behind her modest veil lay a mind that matched, perhaps even surpassed, the legal titans he had commanded. "Come," he barked. Then, command laced with urgency, "Sit with me. Explain this thoroughly." The maid hesitated a heartbeat, then nodded. As she settled beside him, the gulf between master and servant seemed to narrow, though the air remained electric. She pointed to a passage etched in near illegible script. "This contract was drafted with intent to bind, but hidden within is a clause that allows for contestation under specific conditions. Conditions your rivals overlooked. Perhaps considering the language too archaic or irrelevant." The sheikh leaned in, eyes narrowing as the implications settled. This could unravel their claim entirely. "Yes, Your Highness, but it requires swift action. We must present this before dawn, before the opposing counsel even smells the challenge." He clenched his jaw, eyes burning with renewed fire. The crisis that had tightened its grip on him only hours before now whispered promises of deliverance. Yet beneath the relief stirred something deeper. A fissure in his own certainty. A reminder that even a billionaire sheikh, surrounded by opulence and authority, could be vulnerable. "I underestimated you," he admitted, the words tasting foreign, yet sincere. "You've altered the course of my empire and my perception." She allowed herself a faint smile, a fragile bloom in the vast desert of his dominance. Sometimes it takes someone outside the circle of power to see the truth clearly. For a moment, silence settled between them like a fragile truce. The palace's towering walls felt less oppressive, as if the air itself had shifted to accommodate this unexpected alliance. But power is never relinquished without a fight. A soft knock echoed through the marbled hall, breaking their shared moment. The sheikh's expression hardened instantly. "Enter," he commanded, voice a razor's edge. The chief advisor stepped inside, his expression unreadable, but urgency clear. "Your Highness, troubling news. The rivals have mobilized. There's movement within the palace. Whispers that the sale of your assets has been expedited. They intend to suffocate you financially before dawn." The maid's eyes widened in alarm. But the Sheikh's fists clenched tighter, veins pulsing with tension. The battle was far from over. It had only grown more insidious. "The law may favor us for now," the Sheikh murmured, voice low and fierce. "But the war is not fought solely in courts. It's in the shadows, in every whispered betrayal." His gaze met the maid's, the fragile solidarity between them, now tempered by the brutal reality of their enemy's ruthlessness. "Tell me," he demanded, voice barely a whisper, "how deep do these shadows reach? Who else has been compromised?" She hesitated, then confided, "There are those within the palace, trusted faces, whose loyalties waver. They move unseen, threading chaos into your reign." A flash of pain crossed the Sheikh's features, the sting of betrayal sharper than any desert gale. Trust, once firm as gold, now crumbled like dust beneath relentless winds. He rose abruptly, the sheer force of his will filling the space. "Prepare the chambers. I will not be taken so easily, not by enemies outside or traitors within." The maid followed silently, her heart pounding. This was no longer just a battle for wealth or power. It was a fight for legacy, for the very soul of the billionaire Sheikh. They moved through long, echoing corridors, where tapestries whispered secrets and statues loomed like silent sentinels. Each step bound them closer, in a pact forged not in privilege, but in desperation and determination. Here, stripped of titles and roles, the line between master and servant blurred into fragile camaraderie. The Sheikh paused before a heavy door, fingers brushing the intricate carvings. "Tonight," he said, voice cold steel and raw resolve, "we reclaim what was nearly lost." She nodded, meeting his eyes with steadfast courage. Together. As the doors closed behind them, a shadow stirred in the far darkness of the palace. A slim figure, face hidden beneath the hood of secrecy, watched with a predator's patience. A faint smile curved the lips beneath the shadow. The game was only beginning, and the billionaire Sheikh had no idea just how high the stakes would rise. The desert winds howled outside, carrying secrets older than the sands themselves. But inside those walls, a new storm was gathering, ready to shatter alliances, unravel truths, and ignite a reckoning that would change everything. The grand chamber hummed with urgency as the billionaire Sheikh rose from the heavy velvet chair, his dark gaze fixed on the faded parchment that had upended everything. The subtle quiver in his jaw betrayed the storm beneath the surface, pride wounded and power challenged. Yet within that storm, a flicker of something rare, hope, sparked by the twist the unexpected ally had uncovered. He paced the marble floor, the echo of his steps swallowed by the vastness of the hall. The scent of oud had transformed. It was no longer a comfort, but a sharp reminder of the precarious, tightening noose of his rival's schemes. Each breath was heavy with the weight of betrayal. The palace no longer a sanctuary, but a battleground painted in gold and shadows. Beside him, the maid, this enigma clothed in simplicity, watched silently, her eyes unwavering, revealing not submission, but a resolute fire. She did not flinch as he closed the distance between them in a swift stride, the space charged with unspoken tension. "You speak as if you have wielded power your entire life," the Sheikh said, voice low, but edged with a grudging respect. "Tell me, How did you learn to navigate this labyrinth that my finest strategists missed? Her gaze held his, steady and unyielding, as if sharing a secret only known to the desert wind. I observe what others refuse to see, Your Highness. True power lies not solely in wealth or titles, but in understanding every hidden fold of the world beneath your feet. His lips pressed into a thin line, the admission clawing at his pride. Still, he was compelled, drawn toward this defiant spirit whose knowledge now slipped like silk threads into the fabric of his empire. Come. There's no time to waste. In the dimly lit study, adorned with tapestries of ancient battles and victories, she unfurled the weathered document across the polished ebony table. The golden lamp cast flickering shadows over the script, illuminating the ancient clause that had eluded his legal titans. An arcane yet vital loophole. This clause, she began, tracing the delicate ink swirls with a slender finger, was hidden deliberately, meant to be overlooked by those blinded by customary law. Its conditions demand a challenge within hours, a narrow window that no one but us dares to seize. The Sheikh leaned forward, absorbed in the intricate dance of words that now shaped his fate. The gravity of the moment was suffocating, yet exhilarating. It was as if the desert itself held its breath in anticipation. He straightened abruptly, resolve igniting like desert fire. We move at dawn. The palace will stand firm tonight, but the real battle begins when the sun rises. Her eyes flickered with a mix of determination and something deeper, a fragile hope intertwined with the steel of survival. There's more, she whispered, lowering her voice. Whispers tell of those who act against you from within, trusted faces who have betrayed your trust. The revelation struck like a cruel wind. The Sheikh's fists clenched, knuckles white against the ornate table. The palace was a gilded cage woven with silent enemies. His empire was vast, but now his greatest threat stalked corridors assumed loyal. Names, he demanded, his voice a razor's edge cutting through the room's tension. She hesitated, then offered a single name, a noble counselor whose smiles had always concealed hidden knives. He moves shadows like a master, Your Highness. His loyalty is currency he trades with those who promise power. Betrayal tasted bitter. The Sheikh's chest tightened, the sting of deception deeper than any wound inflicted by rivals on distant lands. The heavy oak doors swung open abruptly, revealing his chief advisor, eyes sharp and breathless. Your Highness, the enemy's forces are mobilizing swiftly. A contingent has breached the north gates. Our scouts report movements. An assault meant to cripple your holdings before dawn. A gust of dry air swept through the chamber, carrying with it the scent of impending storm. The Sheikh's jaw tightened, the aura of unshakable control folding just enough to reveal a glimmer of raw humanity beneath the mask of unbreakable power. Prepare our defenses, the Sheikh commanded, voice steady but crackling with lethal intent. Rally the guards. Every shadow must be accounted for. We do not yield to intimidation. Our fortress is not mere stone, but will and honor. The maid lifted her eyes to meet his, a silent pact forming, no longer master and servant, but allies forged by necessity and the thirst for survival. As they moved through echoing halls, where silent portraits of ancestors watched with eternal vigilance, the walls seemed to pulse with hidden life. Secrets long buried stirred, whispering warnings that only the desperate would heed. In the solitude of his private chamber, the sheikh stood before a polished mirror, framed in intricate gold leaf. His reflection was that of a man both victorious and vulnerable. The weight of leadership bore down like the relentless desert sun, unyielding, unforgiving. He reached up, fingertips brushing the sharp line of his jaw, as if to steady a tempest raging within. The empire had survived centuries on loyalty and fear, but tonight the foundation cracked. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. The maid entered, carrying a small, sealed envelope. The handwriting unfamiliar, the seal bearing a sigil unknown. She placed it gently on the table. This arrived moments ago. No courier was seen. The sheikh's brow furrowed, curiosity and unease warring in his eyes. Breaking the seal, his gaze skimmed the words penned in elegant, deliberate script. Each line dripped with menace, disguised as courtesy. You believe yourself untouchable, but shadows stretch further than you imagine. Some secrets in this palace hatch beneath your feet. Beware the serpent whose bite is silent and deadly. Your next move decides your fate. The room seemed to chill despite the desert night pressing against the windows. The message was a dagger cloaked in velvet, promising war in silence, a foe unseen but lethal. His eyes met the maid's once more, both recognizing the gravity. This was no longer merely a legal battle or a rift of loyalties. This was a war where every word, every glance might conceal death. And in the heart of the palace, beneath the glittering chandeliers and gilded arches, the billionaire sheikh understood one truth with ruthless clarity. He was no longer the hunter. Tonight, he was the prey. The candlelight flickered softly against the cold marble, casting trembling shadows in the private chamber where the billionaire sheikh and the maid sat side by side. The envelope lay open before them, its veiled threat still echoing in the heavy silence. The words shaped unease, like desert winds shifting beneath an endless sun. The sheikh's dark eyes, usually stormy and untouchable, softened for a moment, reflecting not the lustrous gold that adorned the palace, but a quiet vulnerability. He leaned forward, fingertips brushing the edge of the table, as if grounding himself against the tide of betrayal that surged within. The fragility in his voice broke through the armor of command. "Who sent this?" he demanded, though knowing full well the answer might fracture his already trembling foundation. The maid's gaze sharpened, a shadow too deep to reveal openly, yet close enough to shake the palace itself. Someone who wields secrets like daggers. A bitter laugh escaped him, a sound rare and raw in the echoing chamber. So the serpent coils within. Poison is brewed in the very halls meant to protect me. She met his gaze, steadily, her voice a tempered flame. It is no longer just a game of property and power. You are a man hunted, pursued by those who would see you fall in ruin, and by those who smile beside you while sharpening their knives. The weight of her words hung between them, thick and suffocating. For all his vast reach, the billionaire sheikh felt the walls close in tighter. The grandeur of his lineage, threatened by shadows he once thought distant. Yet beneath the pressure, a spark of defiance ignited, a testament to a will tempered not merely by privilege, but by survival. Rising abruptly, his tall frame cast a lengthening shadow across the opulent room. His voice cut through the stillness, sharp as the desert night. "Call my most trusted, not the ones blinded by the glitter of gold, but those who serve with true loyalty." The maid nodded, recognizing the shift. The dance between master and servant had evolved into an alliance forged in fire. As footsteps echoed from the hall, their brief moment of fragile truce shattered. The heavy door creaked ajar once more, revealing a figure robed in black, steps silent yet purposeful. A messenger unknown to the palace guards, his face concealed beneath a hood, deposited a small velvet pouch before them and vanished as swiftly as he arrived. The sheikh's hand trembled slightly as he allowed curiosity to overcome caution. Opening the pouch, a single ornate ring gleamed, a symbol crowned with an emerald, etched with an insignia long thought dormant. His breath caught, heart pounding in a rhythm both foreboding and electrifying. "This," he murmured, eyes narrowing, "belongs to the House of Bahar." The maid's face paled, rumored extinct, a dynasty erased by time and whispered into legend. But legends, his voice hardened, sometimes breathe vengeance. A sudden knock shattered the fragile calm. The chief advisor stepped in, urgency etched across his usually impassive features. "Your Highness, reports confirm the north gates have been breached. Our scouts speak of cloaked riders, mercenaries linked to the Bahar faction. Their advance is swift." The interplay of light and darkness in the vast chamber deepened, mirroring the turmoil tightening the sheikh's chest. His empire, once an impregnable fortress of wealth and influence, now teetered on a razor's edge. A tense silence followed, thick enough to taste. The maid's eyes held a storm of her own, fear laced with fierce resolve. "We must act before the sun rises. The enclave will strike in shadows, seeking to dismantle your empire from within." The sheikh nodded, his fingers curling into fists. The weight of centuries of rule pressed down upon his broad shoulders, yet within him stirred a fire rekindled by adversity and unexpected companionship. His voice softened, but remained unyielding. "Prepare the palace. Rally those whose loyalty has never wavered, not for riches, but for honor." She reached out, her hand brushing his, brief, electric, a silent promise in the swirling chaos. For once, the walls that separated master and servant seemed to dissolve beneath the heat of shared purpose. As the first distant drums of conflict echoed through the desert. Night. The room was suddenly chilled by a whisper carried on the wind, a secret carried in the hushed voices of hidden courtiers. "He knows," the whispered voice said from the depths of the shadows, "and yet he trusts her." The sheikh's eyes flashed toward the darkened corners, lips tightening into a thin, determined line. The scent of oud mingled with something darker now, a prelude to betrayal and blood. With the palace preparing for an assault, invisible to the outside world, and with enemies breathing down every hall. The true war had just begun, and beneath the glitter of golden chandeliers and the relentless desert stars, a single thought consumed the billionaire sheikh. Trust was a luxury he could no longer afford, especially when his closest ally might hide a secret deadlier than any enemy's blade. The night pressed in on the grand palace like a shroud, thick with shadows and whispered dangers. The billionaire sheikh stood by the tall window, his silhouette cut sharply against the glittering lights of the oasis city beyond. The emerald ring from the House of Bahar glinted faintly on his palm, a cold reminder of a past long buried, now awakened with a vengeance that threatened to consume everything. The room's heavy silks stirred faintly in the desert breeze, mingling with the lingering scent of oud and something darker, fear, or perhaps the taste of betrayal. His dark eyes, still sharp but shadowed with doubt, traced the patterns of the moonlight on the marble floor, where courtiers and conspirators moved like ghosts behind gilded curtains. She appeared silently at his side, the maid whose insight had shattered his arrogance, and perhaps unwittingly begun to topple the walls between master and servant. Tonight, those walls were fragile threads stretched taut by suspicion and necessity. He did not turn immediately. "What news?" he asked, voice low but edged with steel. Her gaze met his steadily. "The loyalists are gathering, but their numbers are thin. The traitors work swiftly. The noble counselor you named, the one who smiles like a friend, has already begun sowing chaos within your ranks. Several guards have disappeared, replaced by men whose eyes carry no loyalty." A dry bitterness cracked his lips. "So close to my throne, yet the venom is already dripping." His hand tightened around the ring, knuckles whitening. "And the Bahar faction. What moves do they make?" She hesitated a moment, then whispered, "They strike at dawn. Mercenaries hired from beyond the deserts, cloaked in silence and steel. They are mobilizing under a banner that once belonged to a house thought extinct." The sheikh's gaze flickered with a storm of memories, ancient struggles of blood and honor, extinguished dynasties, and promises of revenge whispered through generations. "We have but hours," he said, voice growing colder with grim resolve. "Prepare the palace defenses. Every corridor, every chamber must be watched." His eyes softened briefly as they found hers in the dim light, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. "Whatever secrets you carry, however dangerous they may be, I need your mind by my side, not just your loyalty." She inclined, her head, the fire in her eyes undimmed. "I will not fail you, Your Highness, not again." He turned then, the weight of the moment settling on his broad shoulders, like the desert night itself. As they moved through the labyrinthine halls, tapestries whispered forgotten legends, and the silence pulsed with the threat of unseen eyes. A sudden sharp cry shattered the stillness, as guards burst past them, faces masks of urgency. "They've breached the outer perimeter," one shouted. "The mercenaries are inside the northern courtyard." The sheikh's heart thundered in his chest, a storm matching the chaos flooding the palace. He surged forward, the rich fabric of his robes trailing like a dark river beneath his stride. In the hall where walls shimmered with golden light, the maid, paused briefly, hand brushing the smooth stone. Her breath caught, eyes distant for the barest instant. She had been a servant, invisible for so long. But here, now, she was something more. "They'll try to cut us off from the council chambers," she warned, voice tight. "We must hold the command center at all costs." The Sheikh nodded, his gaze fierce. Then there is no more hesitation. Together, they rallied the palace defenders, men loyal by blood, oath, or fear. The clash was swift and brutal, as steel sang through the air beneath the vaulted ceilings. Outside, the desert winds howled like the cries of the fallen, echoing the chaos within. Amid the tumult, the Sheikh caught sight of the counselor, the smiling traitor, emerging from shadows, dagger gleaming. Their eyes met, and a cold calculation passed between them. One man was the eternal storm, the other its cruel eye. The maid blocked the counselor's deadly advance, her hands steady as she wrestled the blade away. "You forget," she whispered, breathless but unbroken. "I see what you cannot hide." The traitor hissed but gave ground, his mask slipping to reveal fury and fear. The Sheikh moved forward, every step weighted with purpose. His voice rolled through the chamber like thunder. "This palace is mine to protect. Those who stand against me will be crushed beneath its walls." As the first light crept over the horizon, the mercenaries faltered, their will broken by the unyielding defense shaped not by gold or power alone, but by the fierce hearts bound to this land. Exhausted, yet unbowed, the Sheikh and the maid stood side by side, the dawn's pale light catching the green flame of the Bahar ring in his hand. He exhaled slowly, the storm momentarily stilled. But as the echoes of battle faded, a soft, malicious laugh floated through the cooling air, an unseen presence's threat lingering like smoke in the corners. The maid's eyes narrowed, voice barely a breeze. "This is but the first move." His gaze hardened, dark as the desert night. "Then I will be ready." Behind them, hidden in the palace shadows, the figure cloaked in secrecy smiled, a secret no light had yet revealed. And in that moment, beneath the endless expanse of stars, the billionaire Sheikh understood that the war for his empire, his trust, and his very soul was far from over. The true enemy was as much within as without, and the next betrayal would come from the one he trusted most. The moon hung low over the vast desert, its pale light casting long, silver fingers through the towering windows of the grand palace. The air inside was thick with tension, alive with the scent of oud and whispered danger. The distant call of the night wind seemed to echo the turmoil beneath the gilded ceilings, where the billionaire Sheikh stood rigid, his silhouette sharp against the sprawling city lights like a shadow carved in stone. Beside him, the maid moved with quiet confidence, her eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight and something deeper, something unspoken and potent. The emerald ring lay heavy in his palm, a relic of a forgotten lineage, its cold surface pressing against his skin like a reminder of vengeance long buried. His gaze, usually so impenetrable, softened briefly as it met hers, a fragile connection forged in the crucible of betrayal and desperate alliance. "The Bahar faction," he whispered, voice low but sharp as desert glass, "marches with the fury of a storm. Their mercenaries broke through our defenses faster than I imagined." His fingers clenched the ring, knuckles whitening. And the noble counselor, the serpent hiding in plain sight, spreads poison like wildfire. She met his look without hesitation, her voice steady. "The poison has already seeped deep. Several guards are missing, likely turned or silenced. The palace breathes with betrayal beneath its golden mask. Every step forward risks a knife in the back." A harsh bitterness curled his lips. "Then we must cut the serpent's head before the venom kills us all." The distant echo of clashing steel and hurried footsteps pulled their attention, piercing the heavy atmosphere of plotting and dread. The sounds were close now, the intruders no longer shadows in the distance, but specters of war, pounding against the palace's fragile walls. The Sheikh's breath tightened, a fierce storm raging behind his eyes. "You've seen their moves," he said, voice grinding with determination. "Tell me what to do." She straightened, every inch the quiet flame burning against the cold night. "Hold the command chambers at all costs. Without it, the enemy controls your voice. The counselor leads their dark maneuvers. His smile is a blade." The room seemed to shrink beneath the weight of those words, the air thick with a sudden charge. He nodded, a slow burn igniting into a wildfire of resolve. "Then we show them that this empire is defended not by walls of stone, but by hearts unbroken." They moved swiftly through vast corridors, adorned with ancestral portraits and carved arches. The settled silence, now broken by the urgent cadence of their footsteps. Guards rallied, armor gleaming beneath the flickering torchlight. Eyes alight with loyalty or fear, sometimes a difficult distinction to discern in this storm of shadows. The maid's glance flicked toward a side passage, as a messenger darted past, breathless and pale, warning of enemy forces breaching the northern courtyard. Without hesitation, the Sheikh's commanding voice roared through the halls, an unyielding force that drew men and weapons alike into a deadly symphony of defense. Suddenly, steel sang sharply as the noble counselor appeared. His polished smile, a mask now soured by impending defeat. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked with the Sheikh's in a silent battle of wills, unyielding and unforgiving. The maid stepped forward, her hands steady as she caught the counselor's wrist mid-thrust, twisting the blade away with a deftness born of survival. "You forget," she hissed, voice low but fierce. "I see what you try to hide." Fury flashed across the traitor's face, shattering the facade. His retreat was a snarl, a promise that this battle was far from over. The Sheikh advanced, the weight of command settling on him like armor reforged in fire. "This palace is my legacy. Those who betray it will be crushed beneath its stones." Each syllable fell like a hammer blow, reverberating through the chamber. As dawn crept over the horizon, soft light spilled across the marble floors, catching the emerald glow of the Bahar ring resting heavy in his palm. The battle had been won, a fortress held, not just by might, but by the fierce resolve of those who dared to defend it. Yet beneath the victory, a sinister whisper crept through the cool morning air, curling around the corners and shadows. It was a laugh, low, malicious, filled with dark promise. The maid's eyes narrowed, voice barely above a whisper. This was only the opening move. The Sheikh's gaze hardened, dark as the endless desert night. Then we prepare for the storm to come. Behind them, hidden in the depths where light dared not reach, a figure cloaked in shadows smiled. A secret weapon poised, waiting to strike when least expected. And in that charged silence, beneath a sky heavy with stars, the Billionaire Sheikh knew the cruelest battle had yet to begin, one where trust was the deadliest gamble of all. The Grand Hall, usually a sanctuary of opulence and sovereign command, now echoed with a tension sharp enough to cut through the thickest silks adorning its walls. The Billionaire Sheikh stood motionless, gaze fixed on the heavy velvet curtains swaying softly against the desert night breeze. His mind, a storm beneath the calm facade. Beside him, the maid's presence was a quiet yet unyielding anchor. Her eyes, bright with determination and shadowed by a secret burden, met his in the dim candlelight. The emerald ring pressed cold against his palm, its ancient symbol a harsh reminder of the vengeance poised to unravel everything he had built. "They move faster than we anticipated," she whispered, voice steady despite the rising chaos beyond these walls. He didn't turn immediately, absorbing her words like a man facing a desert gale, relentless, suffocating. The Bahar faction's return was always a shadow looming in the distance, he said, jaw tightening. But to see their mercenaries breach the northern defenses so swiftly, it is a wound to my empire I will not permit. Her gaze flared with quiet fire. There are traitors within. The noble counselor you named, whose smile veils a serpent's cruelty. Guards disappear, replaced by whispers and eyes that no longer serve you. His dark eyes narrowed, the storm in their depths intensifying. Betrayal from within is poison sharper than any sword. Tell me, who else walks these halls under false allegiance? She hesitated, then spoke with a voice low yet resolute. Several, Your Highness. Trusted faces whose loyalties shift like desert sands with the wind. We must be vigilant. The serpent's nest is deeper than we feared. Pain flashed across his features, a raw edge beneath the steel of his command. Trust, an empire's bedrock, now cracked under the weight of whispered treason. He stepped to the expansive window, the city lights. Beyond flickering like distant hopes threatened by encroaching darkness. I have underestimated the cost of solitude, he murmured, more to himself than to her. A soft exhale escaped him as he turned, the sharp line of his jaw softened by vulnerability. Ready the loyalists, we defend not just walls, but the soul of this palace. She moved closer, the space between them charged with an unspoken alliance, forged in desperation and mutual survival. I have kept watch in silence longer than you know, she said, voice barely above a breath. Tonight, my loyalty is yours, not as servant, but as equal in this fight. His gaze lingered on her, a flicker of the man beneath the mask of authority. a man capable of fearing loss, but also of rising through it. "Then stand with me," he commanded, voice a tether pulling them together. "There is no greater battle than the one we fight at home." The palace corridors were a labyrinth of shadow and gold, but tonight, each step thundered with the weight of unseen enemies and fragile alliances. Guards swarmed like specters summoned to a call, their armor clinking softly beneath torches that cast giant, flickering shadows against the marble. Suddenly, the echo of hurried footsteps cut through the still air. A messenger, worn and pale, burst into the chamber. "Your Highness, the counselor's plans unfold faster than expected. He has sown dissent among the guards. Several halls have been compromised." The Sheikh's hand clenched the emerald ring so tightly, veins stood out like desert roots. "Rally the true loyalists. Secure the council chambers at all costs. If they control the voice of this empire, its heart is lost." The maid's eyes held a fierceness that belied her unassuming form. "We will not let the serpent choke the palace," she vowed. Their steps quickened, a storm gathering momentum in the silent belly of the grand palace. They reached the command center, an ornate room where golden tapestries whispered old victories, and found the loyal guards already assembling. Faces grim with determination. Without hesitation, the Sheikh strode to the center, voice ringing like thunder in the tension-choked space. "This palace is not merely stone and gold. It is the legacy of generations. Those who betray it face ruin beneath its walls." The maid's hand brushed his briefly, a spark that carried more than words could hold. In that breath, master and servant blurred into something forged by necessity and respect. Suddenly, a sharp cry shattered the moment as the traitorous counselor appeared at the door, his polished smile twisting into a snarl. A dagger gleamed in his hand, pure malice in his eyes. The maid reacted instantly, her hands steady as she caught the wrist mid-thrust, twisting with practiced strength. "You forget. I see the darkness you cannot hide," she hissed, breath ragged but defiant. The counselor's fury cracked his mask, revealing desperate fear beneath. He slunk back into the shadows, leaving behind a battlefield strewn with promises of more to come. The Sheikh advanced, voice cold steel, with righteous fury. "No shadow, no serpent will claim this empire while I stand." The first pale light of dawn seeped through the windows, catching the emerald's glow in his palm. A symbol once thought lost, now a beacon in the storm. Breathing heavily but unbowed, they stood together, guardians of a fragile peace bought with blood and betrayal. Yet as the echoes of battle faded, the hush brought a new threat. A low, cruel laugh slicked through the corridors, soft as silk, but deadly as poison. The maid's eyes narrowed. This was only the opening move. The Sheikh's gaze hardened, an unrelenting fire beneath the desert night. "Then we shall prepare, for the true storm is yet to come." In the palace's deepest, darkest recesses, where whispers breed war and shadows hunger for power, a figure watched, unseen and unchallenged, and in that moment, with the future hanging on a knife's edge, The billionaire sheikh understood with chilling clarity that the severest betrayal was yet to be revealed. The night deepened, swallowing the palace in its inky embrace. The vast halls, once vibrant with the laughter of nobility, now whispered only threats hidden beneath silk-draped facades. The billionaire sheikh's silhouette stood like a sentinel against the arched window, his chest rising and falling with the weight of unseen storms. In his hand, the emerald ring of the House of Bahar gleamed faintly, a cold beacon of vengeance and lost honor. Beside him, the maid moved with a calm born of survival, her footsteps muffled against the mosaic floor. Her gaze was resolute, yet beneath it lay the shimmer of a secret burden, one that threatened to unravel further the fragile alliance between them. The scent of oud lingered in the room, mingling with the faint rustle of silk and the distant, anxious murmur of guards preparing for battle. "He is tightening his grip," she murmured, voice low but unyielding. "The noble counselor spreads his poison deeper than we feared. Men we trusted vanish. Shadows now wear the faces of friends." The sheikh's jaw clenched, the sharp angles of his face etched with fury and disbelief. Betrayal here is sharper than any blade forged in distant lands. His dark eyes narrowed, burning with stormy intensity. "Tell me who else has been seduced by this venom." A hesitation flickered in her glance before she spoke, voice steady but dripping with caution. "More than one. Trusted advisors who shift, loyalties like desert sands in the wind. They mask their treachery with smiles, but the serpent's fangs have grazed too close." The weight of her words pressed on him, a cruel revelation that the fortress of gold and power was crumbling from within. He turned away, rubbing his forehead as if to dispel the oppressive heat of looming defeat. The city's oasis sparkled below, untouched by the palace's internal storm. "But for how long? We have underestimated the price of solitude," he admitted, voice rough with the unaccustomed fracture of vulnerability. She reached out, her hand briefly brushing his, a tentative thread weaving trust where doubt once festered. "Then let us face this storm together, not as master and servant, but as allies." His gaze met hers, dark and soulful. "Stand with me," he commanded softly, the weight of centuries settling onto his shoulders once again. "The battle will be reeks and ruin if the heart of this palace falls." The corridors soon thrummed with the cadence of armored footsteps and whispered commands. The once serene palace had transformed into a battlefield of shadows and fractured loyalties. Flames flickered in ornate sconces, casting dancing specters across faces grim with loyalty or suspicion. A shudder ran through the air when a breathless messenger burst into the chamber. His eyes wide with urgency, he reported, "Your Highness, the counselor's treachery deepens. Many halls are compromised. His schemes have turned guard against guard." The sheikh's grip on the emblem tightened until his knuckles ghosted pale beneath the skin surface. "Call the true loyalists. We must hold the command chambers. The voice of this empire cannot fall to a serpent." The maid's glance hardened, fierce and unrelenting. "We will not let the poison breach the core." Together, they raced through the labyrinth, reaching the command center just as the loyal guards assembled. Faces clenched with grim determination, eyes wary yet unyielding. The air thickened with anticipation, the heavy breath of an impending storm. The Sheikh stepped forward, voice ringing through the tension-choked space like thunder rolling across barren dunes. This palace is more than marble and gold. It is the legacy of generations. Betray it, and you shall see its stones shatter under the weight of your treason. His words, sharp and resolute, stoked the fires within those gathered. The maid's hand brushed his once more, a spark of solidarity burning in the silence. Without warning, the door cracked open, revealing the imposing figure of the traitorous counselor. His polished smile wavered, replaced with menace as a dagger gleamed in his grasp. The maid sprang forward, her hands strong and unyielding as they caught the counselor's wrist. "You forget," she hissed, breath ragged but resolute. "I see the shadows you try to hide." The counselor's composure fractured, desperation flashing in his eyes. Retreating into darkness, he left behind a lingering threat unresolved. The Sheikh advanced, voice forged of cold steel and righteous fury. "No serpent will claim this empire while I draw breath." The first pale light of dawn seeped through towering windows, untouched by the night's rage. The emerald glow of the Bahar ring gleamed heavily in his palm, a symbol no longer of lost bloodline, but of rekindled defiance. Exhausted yet unbroken, they stood side by side, guardians of a fragile peace, wired from the threads of loyalty and sacrifice. Yet beneath the fragile calm, a cruel laughter drifted, a low melody weaving through shadows like poison. The maid's eyes narrowed, voice barely a whisper. This was only the opening gambit. The Sheikh's gaze hardened, shadowed as the endless desert night. Then we shall prepare, for the real storm has only just begun. In the palace's deepest darkness, where silence held secrets and shadows swallowed trust, a figure cloaked in mystery smiled, a predator waiting for the rarest moment to strike. And beneath a sky embroidered with countless cold stars, the billionaire Sheikh realized with chilling clarity that his most devastating betrayal had yet to be unmasked. The first light of dawn slipped softly over the horizon, casting a warm glow that spilled through the palace windows and painted the marble floors with hues of gold and rose. The battle behind those walls had subsided into a solemn quiet, a fragile peace born of sacrifice and unyielding strength. The grand chambers, once shadows of betrayal and turmoil, now breathed a tentative calm, as though the very stones exhaled relief. The billionaire Sheikh stood by the window, his dark eyes tracing the awakening city beyond, the oasis sparkling anew, a testament to endurance amid endless desert sands. The ancient emerald ring gleamed softly in his palm, no longer just a symbol of forgotten vengeance, but an emblem of his reborn legacy. Beside him, the maid, the woman who had unraveled secrets hidden deep within the palace and shattered his pride with unwavering resolve, stood close but steady, her silent presence a testament to a bond forged in fire. For a moment, their gazes locked, a profound understanding passing between them. The gulf that had once divided master and servant dissolved like mist beneath the desert sun. In that gaze, there was forgiveness for past wounds inflicted by suspicion and walls too long built, and for the vulnerability only truth could reveal. His voice, rich and low, broke the silence. "We have weathered the storm, but it was not wealth nor power alone that saved this empire." She inclined her head, a soft smile lighting her face, an expression tender yet fierce. "It was trust, Your Highness. Trust earned where least expected, and held fiercely against every shadow." The palace corridors outside began to stir again, courtiers and guards emerging from their fearful withdrawal to face a new dawn. News of the Loyalists' triumph traveled swiftly, carried in whispers sweetened with hope. The noble counselor, the serpent who had stricken deep, was no more than a memory, fading into the sands of defeat. His treacheries had been outmatched by an alliance stronger than gold, a partnership built on courage, intellect, and unexpected loyalty. The Sheikh reached out, gently taking the maid's hand in his. The touch was light, but filled with an unspoken promise. "You have changed not only the fate of my reign, but the course of my heart." Her eyes shimmered with emotion, a blend of relief, gratitude, and something warmer, something that had blossomed amidst the chaos. "And you have shown me that true power is not in dominion alone, but in the willingness to see beyond titles." Their footsteps echoed softly as they walked toward the grand hall, where sunlight now streamed fully, bathing the gilded pillars and intricate mosaics in a radiant glow. Courtiers turned in respectful silence, their skepticism replaced by awe at the transformation, wrought not only in the palace's fortune, but in their ruler's spirit. At the throne, once a symbol of isolation and command, the Sheikh paused. He gazed down at the emerald ring, and then at the circle now formed by those gathered, not just subjects, but a family reborn through trials. The weight of the crown sat lighter upon his head, balanced by humility and the promise of renewal. A soft breeze stirred the silk curtains, carrying with it the faint but unmistakable scent of blooming jasmine from the palace gardens, a fragrant herald of peace and new beginnings. The maid looked toward those gardens, imagining days where laughter would replace whispered fears, where love would outshine every shadow cast by the past. As the sun climbed higher, lighting every corner of the emirate, the Sheikh spoke again, his tone resolute yet gentle. "Tonight, we shall celebrate not just survival, but the triumph of unity and hope. This empire's true strength lies in the hearts that refuse to break." The maid's smile deepened, her hand still holding his with steady warmth. "Together, we will build a future where secrets no longer divide, but where every truth is a brick in the foundation of trust." The grand doors opened wide, embracing the day, and all who would walk beside them on the path ahead. The palace gleamed, not just in gold and marble, but in the light of redemption and love fulfilled. At last, the